To accept, dial 5 now.
Hello, this is Ross Ulbricht. I'm calling you today from prison, from a maximum security federal penitentiary. I've lost my freedom. That's what I want to talk to you about today. I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom.
That was my son, Ross Ulbricht. Can you all hear me? Yes. Calling in from a federal penitentiary in Tucson, Arizona, or as I call it, his cage. He's in there for something he did on a computer when he was 26 years old. And this is a recording that he made with Bitcoin Magazine last June, and was played at the conference. The whole thing is on our website, freeross.org. It's authentic, it's raw, it's very powerful. I recommend it. At the time, the audience was riveted to hear Ross speak for the very first time, publicly. And he got a big standing ovation. It was really wonderful. Because Ross had been muzzled for so long. His lawyer said, don't talk to anybody. The media would stab him in the back, all kinds of things. He didn't speak out. He was finally tired of it. He said, look, people are smearing me, prosecutors, internet trolls, the media, everybody. I'm going to speak for myself. So he did. And the main point throughout the whole talk is he wants us to understand what it means to lose our freedom. And Ross has lived in an 8x10 metal box day after day, 24 hours a day for months and months at a time because of COVID. And he's often still in that box. So he knows very well, on a very fundamental level, what it's like to lose your freedom. So Ross is in prison, not because of any violence, but he's there, not here with us, for something he did on a computer, as I said, when he was 26 years old. And I believe the real crime, I believe the something, is that he put Bitcoin on the map, and that alarmed some very powerful people, because he proved with his website that it could be used as a viable alternative currency. And the website was Silk Road, and Bitcoin was the only means of exchange. The site was based on the non-aggression principle, a voluntary interaction, no force, where buyers and sellers could exchange what they chose as long as it didn't harm a third party. So, for example, there was no child pornography permitted because that hurts a child. There was no stolen property permitted because that hurts the legitimate owner of the property. No violent services or violent things at all. But drugs were permitted because it was considered a free choice between two people. And most commonly, by far, was exchanged with small amounts of marijuana. So for his role in the site, for what others chose to do on the platform he created, Ross was given a death in prison sentence.
I was given 2 life sentences without parole, plus 40 years. I'm a nonviolent first-time offender. But if nothing changes, I'll spend the next few decades in this cage. Then, sometime later this century, I'll grow old and die. I'll finally leave prison, but I'll be in a body bag.
So please be clear, Ross is doing 2 centuries, essentially, for all non-violent convictions and charges. Nothing violence at all. He was never accused by the court for inflicting violence or force on anyone. No victim was named at trial. It's pretty well established Ross is not a danger to society, even though the prosecutors called him a kingpin, as if he were El Chapo, who, by the way, got half the sentence Ross got. El Chapo. So the truth is, he's hardly a kingpin. He wasn't controlling any of that. It was open source. Is that Ross is a peaceful idealist. He was driven by his passion for freedom and Bitcoin and privacy. He saw the potential of Bitcoin for monetary freedom, and he wanted to share that. And I know many condemn Silk Road, but I can say that Ross's intentions were good. His goal was to introduce the world to Bitcoin and free markets to the world as well. And without his vision, many have told me cryptocurrency would not be what it is today, and many at this conference and throughout the world would not be nearly as wealthy. In fact, I was told by someone today he was at a gathering of some prominent Bitcoin people, and they were all discussing who was the most important and influential figure in Bitcoin history. And they said Ross Ulbricht was.
Yes!
I was trying to do something good. I was trying to help us move toward a...
This call is from a federal prison.
Sorry, this is prison. I was trying to help us move toward a freer and more equitable world. But we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And now here I am. I'm in hell.
And Ross says this is ironic.
The irony is that I made Silk Road in the first place because I thought I was furthering the things I cared about. Freedom, privacy, equality. But by making Silk Road, I wound up in a place where those things don't exist.
So again, his main message to all of us in this talk is to appreciate our freedom and what it means to lose it.
I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom. It's more than being locked in a cage and the devastation that brings to your family. Locking someone in a cage until they die. It's such a horrific thing to do to a person.
And Ross set out to prove that in prison. He took a survey of his fellow prisoners and he said, if you had a choice between finite torture, agonizing torture, flogging, the rack, pull out your fingernails, whatever, but it's finite. You get tortured and it's over. Or would you want to be here day after endless day for the rest of your life, or even for decades, or even for several years? Which would you take? And they all said, bring on the finite torture. I'd much rather just get it over with and get out of here and get on with my life, instead of wasting it with irreplaceable years. So in order to justify literally torturing Ross for the rest of his life, the judge and the prosecutors had to paint him as a dangerous villain that we need to be protected from, like we all need to be protected from Ross. He had to be put away for the rest of his life because he's so dangerous. And the media were only too happy to cooperate with that.
The caricature they created was a violent drug lord. That is not who I am. That is a lie. It's a lie that was carefully crafted to justify keeping me in this cage until I die. It's a lie designed to turn you against me, to turn your heart off.
And prosecutors did this from day one. And actually what I'm told by many people is kind of their usual procedure. They falsely accused Ross of planning murders based on anonymous chats, but they never charged him at trial, which would have given Ross the chance to defend himself. So that's really convenient. They did whatever they could to get their win. And by the way, one of the people that the prosecutors put up, faked his death and set up this whole murder for hire story that was never proven to be Ross, he's here, and he supports Ross and his release. He's a friend and wants him out. He doesn't believe it's Ross. That says a lot. not too many victims of planned murder want their that person out. So it's just, the whole thing is BS. They did whatever they could to get their win. That's what they do. And the media lapped it up. Because, hey, it's great clickbait, right?
They lied. It's on the record. They cheated. That's on the record. They stole. 2 of them went to prison over stealing. They hid evidence. That's on the record. They destroyed evidence. That's on the record. They planted evidence. That's on the record. At one point, they were looking into how they could give me the death penalty.
And as I say, Ross is not unique. From what I hear, this is business as usual for many prosecutors. There are hundreds of thousands of people in the prison system serving these ridiculously long, excessive sentences. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, over 79% of people serving life are nonviolent drug offenders.
I'm not alone. These prisons are full of people who don't deserve this. We are mothers and fathers. We are sisters and brothers. But we've been made into monsters in your eyes. We've been made less than human.
And yet, despite his suffering, Ross looks to what Bitcoin has become and is becoming, and he rejoices in it. He, who is one of the pioneers of Bitcoin, the person who proved it could be used as money, is gazing out from his cage and celebrating Bitcoin's potential.
And then, next to all that, there's Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been transforming our world since that very first block in the blockchain. And let me tell you something. We are just getting started. Wherever Bitcoin has been embraced, anywhere in the world, freedom and equality follow. Bitcoin is the embodiment of freedom.
And as he contrasts the darkness of prison and how it's kept out of sight and ignored and forgotten, and the wonder of Bitcoin. And I'm often hit with that juxtaposition when I'm at conferences like this, because everybody's talking about great ideas and having fun and meeting people, and I just think how much Ross would enjoy being here with all of us. And instead, he's in this dark place that he's shut away in and can't be part of something he helped make happen. He's just trapped there. He shouldn't be in a cage. He should be here with us today.
On one side, we have loss of freedom. We have despair and darkness. And on the other side, we have Bitcoin. We have freedom, equality, and hope.
And with this talk, Ross cries out from the darkness to you, his people, his community.
But listen, here I am. I'm crying out from that very same darkness. This is a cry for help. My mother can't do this by herself. And I'm crying out not just for me, but for all of us. We need your help. We need you to care. We need you to look at the stark contrast between the freedom of Bitcoin on the one hand and what it means to be locked in a cage until you die.
And Ross presents us with a choice.
We have a choice today, right now. Do we ignore what's happening? The loss of freedom? The dehumanization? Or do we wake up? Listen, Bitcoin is strong. Bitcoin is powerful. We are powerful. And our work is not over. It's time to wake up.
So freeing Ross is not impossible. It just really boils down to people and paperwork and the signature of one person, the President of the United States. He signs stuff. And it can be done. We know people who have been freed that way.
I've seen several of my friends go home after years, even decades in prison. More than one overcame a life sentence. Each time it happened, I weep for joy. Seeing a person regain their freedom, seeing them reunite with their family, there's nothing like it. It's so beautiful, it hurts. It feels like a miracle. We need more miracles.
And finally, Ross challenges us.
I challenge you to shine Bitcoin's light to the darkest places. I challenge you to set us free.
Please join me in taking up this challenge to free Ross. There are many people in the crypto space with connections and influence, and many who know people who know people who know people. And I'm told with the rise of crypto, influential people are very interested in it. And one leader in the community told me that he was having meetings with senators and congressmen, and he said, at every meeting, I'm going to bring up Ross. I'm going to let them know how important his freedom is to the Bitcoin community. That's what we need. Technically challenged here, sorry. So please join him in telling people about Ross. Enlist their support, spread the word. We have a petition that many of you have signed that has almost 500,000 signatures on it. That means something when I talk to a legislator and I show them it. And they go, oh wow, a lot of people care about this. Maybe I should look into it. Maybe I should care. So Ross is right. I can't do this alone. But together, we can have that miracle we need to set him free and bring him home. Please help me with that. Thank you. And one way that's been spreading the word and changing Ross's image, aside from so many things, social media and other things, is Ross's art and NFTs. It's shown incredible support from the crypto community, and there's an auction going on today, is the last day, of Ross's incredible art on the Bitcoin, as a Bitcoin NFT, quote unquote. And the NFTs are more than just bringing funds, which are definitely a game changer, but it's a shift in public perception from, oh, that guy's that brutal drug lord, to, oh, he's an artist and he's sensitive and creative. And that's the true Ross. That's who Ross is. He's a compassionate person who's very, giving. And we're using the funds from the sales, not only for Ross's freedom, but to help his fellow prisoners, their families, and work for criminal justice reform. So the current artwork for sale here, and you can see it at our booth right here, around the corner, makes up what's called the Growth Collection. Ross is very into growth and personal growth. And it has physical art that's hanging on the walls in there, and those will all be also have a digital component, all with Bitcoin tokenized certificates of authenticity using the counterparty protocol. It will be auctioned for Bitcoin using Scarce City's Lightning Native auction platform. It's going on right now. You can go to scarce.city, and bid on it, or see what's up. Ross wanted to sell his art in a way that's authentic to Bitcoin, really to show his gratitude to the community that has stood by him for years, since the beginning, to help us, support us in his fight for freedom. So he sent me a letter about it to read to you. I'm going to read it to you. Here it is. When I was first arrested, I thought all avenues for growth had been cut off from me. I was isolated, and so much of my life as I had known it died. I didn't know how to form new connections and bonds from within prison. I didn't know how to direct my energy into worthwhile endeavors. I was reduced to simply surviving in a hostile environment. But along the way, I learned that I wasn't alone. I did not slip into despair or lose the will to live. The love and support you've shown me over the years has kept me going and given me the strength I need to find ways to grow, even in here. And I'll tell him about this conference and all the love that has been showered on me for him. And that keeps him going. It makes him realize, oh, I'm not forgotten in this box that I live in. It was that in mind that I began thinking about and then producing this art collection. There's just something so inspiring to me about defying the odds and finding a way to grow and even blossom when so much is set against it. It's the apple sprout growing in the barred window of my cell, my desire to sketch it daily so I could share a little piece of my little world with you, sitting in meditation, visualizing that growth, and piece by piece placing it into context and expanding it into a bigger story. And what he's talking about there is the animation that he did. He drew 318 frames by hand to create this animation, which is in there. It's the glimpse of a future when these cages, like the one I'm in, are no longer needed, when there can be growth again, where once there was crushing constraint. It's the understanding that as the blockchain grows, we grow along with it, all of us, and ultimately Bitcoin, and everything that comes from it is human. Thank you for being the inspiration, catalyst, and support of my own growth. In your eyes, I'm bigger and better than I ever would be on my own. You give me the courage to dig deep, express the ideas and images I find there, and share them with the world. What a gift. What a gift it is to have purpose and meaning beyond my daily struggles. Of the many things I lost when I lost my freedom, a sense of purpose, a reason for being that goes beyond myself, the feeling that I can make a difference in the world, that was the hardest to lose. Thank you for helping me find it again. So this collection of art makes something beautiful and amazing out of a cruel and dark, ugly place. It's made up of 4 paintings, as I said, both physical, hanging on the wall, and digital, and one incredible animation, painstakingly created in Ross's prison cell. The paintings were done in oil with brushes and palette knives Ross fashioned out of plastic he came across. The animation was done on paper with a marker pen using a light box. He formed a light box and put a light under a bowl. And he would take the panel that he was drawing, or that he had drawn, and draw the new panel. He'd line it up so he could trace it, so each frame flowed into the next one to make an animation, to make movement. And he used some basic geometry, as he said. Now this one's my favorite because I like to picture prisons deteriorating and people being free. It's called What Becomes of the Cages. It's of a prison now shut down, empty, and going to ruin. And you can even see the sniper towers in the background, in the distance. And it's what I see when I go to drive to see them. I see these sniper towers that are ready to, blow somebody away if they are running across the field. Of this painting, Ross says, what becomes of the cages when we're no longer willing to hurt each other? The next three, blocks 5, 6, and 7, are the first of a series to be continued called the human blockchain. The next block. Ross says it started with Bitcoin, and before it's done, it will connect us all. Crypto is human, he says. As impressive as these paintings are, the most outstanding achievement is Ross's animation called Glow in the Dark. And working with Ross's creation was a great team. We kind of got those frames out of the prison to them, and they added color and music and strung the 318 hand-drawn frames together to make a very powerful animation that's on auction today, and you can see in the other booth. And Ross's great-grandfather was an animator, so this is kind of perfect. It runs in the family. And but creating animation in a prison is a special kind of challenge. And Ross says, I had no idea how laborious a little animation could be. And he talked about how his hands would just cramp up from being so precise and focusing so strongly on each frame, trying to make them perfect for long hours, and wanted it perfectly to match up with the next one. He said he worked his fingers to the bone with sustained focus for many, many weeks to do this. And it features a growing plant that he sprouted from apple seeds. It's one of a whole lineage of growing plants Ross has managed to grow in prison. He just takes apple seeds and sprouts them, and they grow into these plants. One time, it's not allowed, I don't think, because one prison guard seized his plant and put it in our office. So he got to walk by and see his plant. One time the warden was going through and just grabbed him. What is this? What's this doing in here? How dare there be green things in here? And took it. And one time he was in the SHU, segregated housing unit, where they put people to punish them or isolate them. And he was growing an apple plant in the SHU, but it didn't do very well because it didn't have any light. But he named it Schubert, after the shoe. So this is Schubert's descendant here. And he sketched this plant every day for weeks and weeks so he could represent its growth accurately. You can see he just really worked at making it real. He said, I made 64 evenly spaced tick marks around the rim of the cup it grew in so that every day I could rotate it slightly and get a new angle on it as it grew. And that way, once it was animated, it would appear to be rotating as it grew. Then I thought about what the context might be and saw it in the cell. Saw it living in the cell, and I was thinking, what are my surroundings? What are its surroundings? How did we get here? Am I here too? I played it over and over in my mind's eye, imagining how it might look. In the animation, when the plant grows, I send it out, my offering to the world beyond, but I'm left behind to grow old, still stuck in the cell. I worked out the geometry of perspective, how objects appear to grow faster the closer you get to them. I imagined different frame rates by tapping my hand and seeing the animation progress in my mind. I thought about how long each part would take, how many frames I'd need, and how the sizes of the various objects would change. These are just some pages from pages and pages of this. He said, I worked out the formulas and calculated. And he definitely has this, he does not get this from me. This talent is not from me. Maybe the art, but not this. I aligned each sheet of paper, found the center, measured and squared and drew. I traced static elements using the light box I fashioned and averaged dynamic elements between key frames. I worked out the geometry of a rotating cube as a root container for the plant and did even more calculation. He says, that was kind of hard emotionally. I didn't like seeing that old man looking back at me through bars. So I'd like to play the animation for you. It's not long. It's amazing. So Ross says about this, oddly, I won't see this animation myself, not unless I defy the idea it conveys, which of course is that he will grow old and die in a cage. But I'm here to say, he's going to see that animation.
Yes, he is.
He's going to see it, and he's going to be out here in freedom with us. And yeah, it's happening. I'm sure it will. So if you'd like to bid on any of this art, go to Scarce City. It's up here. You can click on their art gallery collection at the top of the page, and then Ross's auctions are on there, and or you can go to any specific links and see it all over here too. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support.
This is, where did you get this? This is where you, do you have more?